Hello, and welcome to another edition of ALN Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, continuing the momentum of the Global Asset Management Summit. The momentum is going so fast that I didn't even get to fill out the full set of pictures and titles, but we have Kimon Onuma, who is president of Onuma Inc., Alexander Hubbock, who is with Verdicity, and Victor Esch, fire chief in Bethesda, Maryland. And the momentum that we're building here is from the last set of presentations at the summit, and I'll get to that in just a second. But first, we like to talk a little bit about how awesome it was. There were so many good connections made. The network is working. Um, Next week, the U.S. Department of State is having a meeting with the National Institute of Building Sciences because they were together for one day at one of our events. That is huge breakthrough. The Embassy of Australia in DC, who we visited with the chair of the Asset Management Council, Wendy McPate, said that what we were talking about was above their level, and they're running the embassy in DC government. They recommended we talk to someone at their headquarters in uh, Australia, and they even suggested that we present on our AI innovations of our members at the Five Eyes next meeting. Five Eyes are Australia, New Zealand, US, Canada, and the UK. And for somebody to suggest that we deserve to be on a platform that high, that says a lot about what our members are doing and coming together. And the fact that we are representing so many different associations, Institute of Asset Management Council, PMAC, the Government Finance Officers Association, International Public Works Engineers of Australia, which is a really innovative group. It's just really positive. And again, thanks to Kimon, Alexander, and Victor for jumping in again and showing how quickly things are moving. They're moving so fast. We now have a new patron member. Kahua made such a huge contribution to last week's events that they have been bumped up to patron member status. And thank you, Onuma Inc. and ABS Quality Evaluations and all of our members. So that's the pitch. And a little bit more background before we bring Kimon on. The way we ended the AI and Federal Asset Management Summit was to show Kimon's work with the PAE building and how he has positioned the information that's available there to be used for other applications other than what the first demonstrations were. And one of the best things to use advanced technology for is to assist first responders who are risking their lives to save us and our assets. So it's really great that Alexander picked up on what Kimon was showing what's possible. Alexander grabbed the information on GitHub and did some things to really make this viable, and he'll get in that. And then Victor came on and talked about why this is important. So, Kimon, if you can join us and start the process of explaining the setup that you did that made it possible for Alexander to make start making tools for assisting people like Victor and his crews heading off to fires and other incidences.
Yeah, so maybe I start last year where we met with Victor over a year ago and we started defining use cases for emergency management and planning. And we actually built apps for emergency management almost a year ago. And we kept on building them. And then we applied it to the PAE building as well. So over the last year, there was technology set up to get the PAE building up to speed to make it accessible. in an open format. There were use cases which are really important in this industry. You can't just start randomly building apps. There has to be a reason for using it and keeping it simple. And with Victor, we identified quite a few, which are posted on our site actually from last year. So they've been there. When we started the session last week, we decided to open up the data for others to demonstrate what can be done with the same data, which is an important piece. We're not just doing technology demonstrations for that sake alone, because technology, a lot of stuff can be done. We're building it in a way to use the shared data. So if an owner like PAE needs to use the building for facility management, but they also need to use it for emergency planning, and there are other apps to do that with, then we're building on the same foundation, which is a critical piece. The fact that we built this for a year makes it fast. It's faster to build it now because we built that foundation for a year. So the next set of development will go faster, and that's the intent for other owners as well too.
Okay, and
I'll pause.
let's stop there for a second and let me comment because I've been planning the summit for months. Actually, the summit last year got canceled because of a government shutdown, so a lot was in place. And then it was last week that Kimon said, "Hey, why don't we do this?" And I my hair was on fire already because of all the stuff that was coming together for this really exciting event. And this was like one more thing that I was first starting to think, oh my goodness, what's happening? But wait a second, this will be really cool. It will actually demonstrate what can be done in a sprint, is what Alexander said when he called me. We'd like to do a sprint. And anyway, so I interrupted Kimon, but I wanted to emphasize that this all came together, even the idea of it, a week ago.
Yeah, it was literally 6 days. I counted the days from start to finish. But so the first thing we did is let's identify a use case, which we already had with Victor. So we said, let's take that use case of emergency planning, put that into the sprint, and say who can do stuff with this data relating to emergency planning. And we posted the videos and the development in our application interface and everything that we had done. Here's an emergency planning app. Who else can do something similar? And then there was also Duncan Green, who also built something else for KNX, a whole different thing. Um, so the intent is not to say this is the end of it, that there's more to be done, including what Alexander showed. There's amazing things he's going to show. There's more that can be done there. There's more. We didn't expect an app to surface that quickly. We thought somebody could jump in and do it. Alexander did. Um, but the other critical piece for this to function well is these apps need to talk to each other, because if you create isolated apps, it's meaningless, because if the building changes or something shifts, you want all to be broadcast out to the other applications, say, well, a wall changed or the name of the room changed or the piece of equipment changed. If you don't have that information in sync, you'll have different versions of the same building, which is where the industry is today typically. There's a lot of applications that don't talk to each other. Then you create isolation and silos.
So, you want to talk at all about what did happen with KNX before we go to Alexander?
Yeah, so maybe just to recap what we posted at the beginning on day two or whenever it was, we posted the output from, there were two buildings. There was the actual PAE building in Portland, and we had a demonstration building, which we called RE1, which is an 18-story residential tower that we've been using for almost 2 years now. That part of it is open sourced and put on the GitHub. And we said, okay, we have an output from the RE1 model in the RDF format, turtle format, which is an open source, open standard format that describes the assets and the spaces and the relationships in the building. This electrical panel is connected to this other piece of equipment. Here's how they're talking to each other. And that was the simplest exercise. So if you use this file that has unique IDs to everything, it's called an IFC GUID, you take it into your app, you do something with it, and you report back what you did. And if you add something new to it, send us a turtle file back so we can validate that we're in sync still. So Duncan Green's work with KNX, he took the turtle file, and we also had a spreadsheet, brought it into their tools that create KNX. It's a tool that creates KNX format, which is a standard for communication equipment, for equipment to communicate to each other. He added 3 or 4 pieces of equipment to that same RE1 model, sent us the turtle file back. That was a file exchange. And what I understood, maybe Alexander will have to confirm this, but Alexander got the same turtle file and also had access to the GitHub and got the geometry of the RE1 layout of the building and put that in as a 2D, 3D. So we had the model in GitHub. We also have the entire setup in what we call Cloud BIM, which is the Onuma system with APIs. That is what we're using with PAE building. That's also connected to sensors from Skycentrics that says here's occupancy, here's temperature. So on Onuma's side, we actually created a new demonstration with that to show fire spread with the actual sensors in the PAE building. So these 2 parallel tracks of 2 buildings, but using the same data.
Excellent. And we should say that the reason why Kimon wasn't able to present in person last week is he is in Japan meeting with clients and he is there tonight. So thank you for waking up in the middle of the night to be with us.
Sure.
And Alexander,
Yes.
you want to add on to the story of what you saw?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I think, I mean, first of all, it's going to be very productive when we do have time to get together and interface a little bit about bringing those two branches together and combining those capabilities. But yeah, so we were provided with the Enuma aspect pattern and IRI scheme, um, uh, methods of description, um, as well as the actual um, the public facing part of the RE1 building um, model. And so we took those and just very quickly threw together a tool that looks at some of that fire relevant equipment, um, identifies it. Shall I share it now?
Yes.
Um, okay. Um, here we go. So this is just running a simulation um, of that building, and it's communicating with that simulation, structuring the data in the format that the Onuma specifications specify. And this highlights fire response relevant equipment throughout the building, as I understand it, as well as fire response relevant conditions. This is not really interfacing with a live feed of data at the moment, but that's very much something we're interested in setting up and doing. And Kimon, I'm just learning now that it sounds like there's some progress on that front of the PAE building. So we will make sure that we don't reinvent any wheels with what you folks are doing. Um, but I think the strengths of the system that we put together here, um, you know, bringing very quickly the key relevant data points of where that equipment is and what it's currently reading. And I want to get that into time series readings over time. I know that we've spoken with Victor about, the conclusions that firefighters can draw from things like temperature over time. Um, what folks watching see on the screen here is reasonably analogous to what ends up showing up on the tablet right now. I think that an important refinement that we want to do is go from this sort of very, very nerdy querying of the data structures to pull that information into just, 4 to 6 big buttons of give me this key information, give me that key information, give me this, that, the other thing. Um, and feed those back in just very very simple, not overwhelming anybody with information kind of a structure that would be relevant and applicable in an emergency circumstance. And it sounds like that's probably going to be the subject of some of our future offline conversations, I hope. um,
Excellent. Thank you. Kimon, do you have any questions now that you're seeing this?
No, yeah, I saw parts of it briefly last week. And I guess one thing to say that's really interesting is all of this work that we're seeing, this is the first time we've actually talked to each other
Yes,
about it, which is
that's
amazing, right, in
great.
itself, that you were
Um,
able to run with the instructions, run with the data. We didn't have to coordinate, well, what are things called? What's the schema? None of that. Just flowed
yeah.
right in, right?
So
And that's the way it
absolutely,
should be.
yeah. Let this be a testimony that the schemas that we were given are yeah, serviceable without needing to call somebody and have your hand held. Um, so that's
Which is
been
not the norm in the
perfect.
industry, right? That's this is very unusual, and that and we know from a development side too. Anytime we start a project like this, we have to spend weeks, if not months, if not years, trying to find things and coordinate and keep things in sync, and to be able to rapidly build things now, if we keep in sync, is a game changer, I think.
Well, we're
And
a
to
leadership organization, so that's what we're looking to do.
yeah. And owners should be demanding this level of access to their own data because if
100%.
the data is not accessible, then you're paying to go and get it again, which is the norm. It's almost like understood to be the norm that that becomes a data gathering exercise or keeping
One
things
of the
in sync.
presentations last week said that they spent $1.5 million on an assessment that should be not needed at all to know where their things were at a
Yeah,
school district. It's
yeah,
just $1.5 million. There's a good return on investment. Get your data structured properly, and you don't have to do an
yeah,
annual walk through all your properties to see if the boiler is still there.
yeah, yeah. If you
Extremely
can,
correct.
yeah, that
Yeah.
cost is, yeah, we call it chaos is billable. But if you want to get any kind of understanding of your facilities, any kind of total cost, you need to kind of at least get access to it. And the other critical thing for this whole exercise has been also been very focused. We didn't try to solve everything, right? There's much more that can be done relating to emergency planning. There's much more that can be done to life cycle of assets. There's much more that can be done with BIM and 3D and everything, but we've narrowed it down to the bare minimum. And the exercise that we created, the bare minimum, was can you track the IDs of these assets? So the assets that you showed on screen, we're tracking the same IDs that we sent you. So we know that,
Yep.
that's an asset that's critical for emergency planning. And that's not the norm either. It's typically a lot of these exercises become so complex at trying to solve everything, then nothing gets solved, which is what PAE ran into as well too. They had an amazing building, amazing BIM, no data until we kind of got in there and say, okay, let's take it piece by piece apart, and then you can start getting useful um,
So,
value out of it.
Victor, you really impacted many people. I heard from a number of folks saying that you presenting at the end of the week of, we had 3 days of events, really drove home why are we doing this? And you want to comment on what you saw Alexander present and what you've been doing with the Kimon?
I can. I've been in the fire service for 53 years. I've been a fire chief for over 35. I've been a chief in California, North Carolina, and in Maryland in the DC area. I'm an international emergency management expert. Both work both domestically and internationally. I spent 10 years in Afghanistan building their emergency management and fire service systems. So I was requested to come to California after the wildfires, specifically to do an after action for the Altadena fires. And simultaneously, I was in a hackathon as a judge and a mentor. And what I learned there was how quickly and accurately OpenAI could produce accurate results almost immediately. Well, subsequently, I met Kimon, and he invited me to a conference in Baltimore. And when I actually met up with him, he asked me a question. He said, "What if the building could talk to you? What would you ask it? What would you want to know?" And he explained that part of the premise of the conference that he was at had to do with smart building. So I didn't know what a smart building was. Um, well, they're only smart if you use the information that the systems have. And I told him, well, that's an easy question. If I could ask the building one question, it would be, give me a snapshot or what's going on inside that building. Because 100% of the time throughout history, over 100 years, the fire service responds to calls and goes into buildings, every building, 100% of the time, blindly. We have no idea what's going on inside that building, or even unless we can see it. So, best case, we usually see some smoke or some fire coming out of certain parts. Often we go into them with alarm bells ringing, but we can't see or smell anything. Somebody did, but by the time we get there, often the smoke has dissipated. That's a very common call for us to get. And we can spend hours searching for the smoke or trying to smell something, and it's just not there. Well, the conditions we're looking for is that this uh, system can provide is smoke conditions, heat conditions, occupancy, exits, where the mechanicals are. So an example would be a routine call we get for a smoke call. We could look for hours and not find anything. Sometimes the problem has corrected itself or just gone away, and also sometimes we were notified in the incipient phase, which is the beginning phase of something, and when we leave several hours later, we can come back and there can be a major fire. Um, that's particularly concerning in a residential situation like in a college dormitory.
Yeah.
That would have fatal outcomes. Another example would be NIH. I was the emergency manager for NIH, specifically for evacuations of the hospital. Um, in that case, the emergency exits are the same route that firefighters use to get into the building. Well, that's a choke point. That's going to be a big mess. So to be able to see what's going on in real time is really, really critical. Another example that this could be used for would be emergency management and law enforcement. Law enforcement can use this for active shooters and hostage situations, being able to see what's going on inside without being inside. So the real potential for this is for me as an incident commander to be able to see what's going on before I even arrive or before personnel actually go into the building. So we at least know what we're dealing with and where we're dealing with it. Um, Ultimately, if a unit officer, that's the person in the fire truck that gets there first, if they have that information, even better. And the ultimate is if the 911 communication center can have some of this information, they can relay that information to us as we're actually just getting out of the fire station, as we're actually leaving. So, what this could do is change 100 years of culture and the way of doing business for the fire service.
That's what we want to be supporting, and we're so happy to be the network that's allowing all of you to be working together. What are some next steps, Kimon?
Yeah, I think it'd be great to get others involved with other owners because the use case it's universal, right? Like Victor said, smart buildings are not talking to us when we're from the fire department or even for facility management.
Right.
And we've seen that to be a universal problem. We don't have to reinvent the wheel for every owner. If we get some kind of standardization, and it does not have to be complex. If we go back to this exercise, we literally asked for two things to keep in alignment: the IDs and the names, or something like that. It was kind of we had a 2-page description. Um, and the other thing is to maybe working with Alexander and others that jump in is if we get more of this live connectivity, which we already have with part of the PA work that we're doing with Skycentrics and others. Um, and the lesson for participants too is that they don't need to understand all the complexity of the technology in the background. They just need to know how to hook in and build an app on top of it so that this is scalable. Um, and
Okay.
yeah,
So the thing that I think is great is helping the people who are risking their lives to save our lives. So
yes,
that's a no-brainer as a first thing beyond what we did when we started with the PAE building was solar to battery storage. That was the thing that we focused on first. And we didn't even start into the HVAC system yet, as far as I know. Um, so this is a great outcome of having that base information together. But then there's other things, lighting controls, so that you're saving electricity from lighting by having those occupancy sensors actually work when people are walking in and out. Now, a lot of that's out there
yeah.
existing already, but a way to make it more pervasive. What are some other avenues that this standardized information used in other directions might result?
Um, One we've been talking about for years, and I think is directly parallel to this, is cybersecurity. So if we don't know what our building systems are doing or how they're talking, then it's a perfect opportunity for hackers to get in and do bad stuff with it, right? And that's one of my reasons I feel that we need to accelerate this development is, first of all, the technology is there to do it. Second, AI is accelerating so fast that it's going to start breaking into systems more easily now with, as we've been reading, right? And if we don't know how our buildings are functioning, that means it's a potential attack surface, right?
Mhm.
And the use cases might be slightly different, but it's exactly the same technology underneath. When you say, I need to go into a building to respond to an emergency, to a fire, versus I need to go into a building to control the systems in the building to make people comfortable, versus I need to understand how the systems are talking to each other so somebody can't hack into it and do bad things with the controls. They're all talking about the same background information. And the other critical thing, I think, for industry is we've seen a lot of presentations and a lot of ongoing discussions about the theory of all this and use cases and slideshows and whatever. The best way to make it work is through these sprints, as Alexander called it, or BIM storms, as we call them, hands-on exercises. Let's stop talking about it. Let's start doing it. And by doing it, it generates this, it reinforces the standard. It helps us ask questions of which standards are important and how do we build them. So let's start using what's already out there versus doing a multi-year plan and saying let's plan for 5 years, which is important too. And I know we have had ongoing discussions with others and Nibs and everybody else. Important stuff, but we also have to start doing. We have no more time to spend a year or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years to say we're going to get there in 5 years. No, it has to start happening now, and we can do it incrementally. There's absolutely no reason not to do that.
Which is great that next week, Department of State is talking to the National Institute of Building Sciences about how to do a demonstration. And I was invited for the first time into the National Institute of Building Sciences headquarters in Washington, D.C., just this week, and found out that in addition to being of service to federal agencies, state and local governments can also use the no bid contracting mechanism that NIBS has as a quasi government agency to innovate. And so we are happy to be reaching out to other organizations, owner organizations, to offer assistance in establishing a scope for demonstrations that they can use. So Victor, this happened since I last talked to you. Like we can go to the headquarters for the National Fire Chiefs Association or any any association, fire service association that you're involved with, and we can say, here's the National Institute of Building Sciences. Here are these people who are doing things. why don't we use your headquarters buildings to innovate further on what has been developed on these volunteer times by these people. So thank you for your volunteer time. What do you think about that,
I think
Victor?
that's a great idea, and I think we've discussed this that because we have to change the culture of the fire service, not just nationally but internationally. Um, the fire service does not uh, uh, adapt to change very well. We're doing the same things we did 100 years ago. Um, so I think it's important that there is a top down push for this, and that would be from the NFPA, National Fire Protection Agency, who makes rules and regulations for the fire chiefs associations and such. Once you get the buy-in there and the push down, it'll be much easier.
So talking about momentum, I didn't even think of this last week, but having you on the program today is allowing us to think of how to set up a demonstration for a fire association. And David Holmberg from National Institute of Standards and Technology had his hand up, and I accidentally promoted him to panelist. David, did you want to say something? Sorry.
You didn't mean to promote me. Um,
Well, I wanted
no,
you to talk, so that's fine.
I see. Um, I had a question for Chief Victor, and that's around the getting access to the FirstNet, at least around here, I think it's called FirstNet, network for the first responders. If we're going to move building information, there's some connection that made to get it data to the truck, to the device in the truck. And what does that look like? I mean, we can have standards for BIM for an application to get access to the data, but how do we get access to the network? Is that an issue?
It is an issue. It's not what you described is not used widely, and that's because of the autonomy of every fire department. If we're just talking about the U.S., every fire department literally is independent of each other. They're autonomous agencies. So what one does, the all the surrounding neighbors may not. So just because one department might be using a system, it is very likely that all the surrounding jurisdictions use different systems.
I
Uh,
see. That's
Up
what I thought.
20 years ago, there was maybe 30 years ago, there was no standard hose connection. So if my department went into a neighboring community, my hose wouldn't fit on their trucks or on their fire hydrants.
Right.
So now there is standard thread that we use. So that's just an example of the autonomy that's out there.
Yeah, you probably know that that's how NIST actually came to exist, was the mismatched fire department hose connections 100 plus years ago in Baltimore.
Wow, a little
That
bit of
was
history. Thank
that
you,
was the
David.
genesis, the use case for the National Bureau of Standards way back. Anyway,
Love it. I'm so glad I promoted you to panelist. This is a great addition. And we hope to be making those types of innovations and developments. And NIST has been very involved in the PAE project. And um, it's early times in the discussion between NIBS and the Department of State. But I suspect that there will be a place in any demonstration innovation for NIST. And maybe we need to have you be the lead for our demonstration at a fire association headquarters. Victor, we're going to have fun with that one.
well, it sounds to me like Kimon has done a lot of good work out on the West Coast, and we can build on that. So
Yeah, and Alexander proved how fast that can happen. And Alexander, do you think it would be even faster now that you have a little bit of not that speed is the issue. The issue is the output. But
Yeah, I mean, in general, refining is slightly slower than just executing without leaving the details to later. Um, but I think that first rounds of refinement can happen very rapidly, and Kimon, I think I'd be very interested in talking about where are some of these other kinds of connections where you think it should work together, and you want to make it work together, and see
Mhm.
if some of our you know, rapid development processes can close some of those gaps and how we want to do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, the API, for example, of the actual building layout, the geometry that you showed, the 3D and the 2D and the location of assets is all through an API, um, which is used by the, which I think what David references, we have a lot of buildings in California, 5,000 buildings for community colleges of similar type of geometry. And we've been talking to them for quite a while too about emergency response. But it goes back to a cultural shift that it's difficult. I think every owner is interested, but until you actually show something and show the use case, then it becomes kind of theoretical. So the more that we can show that this is real, working with their data, then I think there's a lot of opportunities.
excellent. Well,
Yeah.
thank you all for keeping the momentum going. This is really important. And one of the reasons why it's important is AI is changing things so fast that humans are going to have a hard time even understanding how to keep up with it. And I think what you did is show that there are methods for dealing with the explosion of technology that's going to be coming out, and that asset management and ISO 55000 approach to governing your assets can help with that human behavior factor by showing a path, a way to deal with it, not prescribing what to do, but just showing the path for dealing with assets, having a mission statement involving all relevant parties, have an information management system, have a risk assessment, and most important is continual improvement plan. And that's where I start now. Are you interested in continually improving? If you are, we've got a lot of things to talk about. If not, let's talk about baseball. But with AI, globally understood, I think everybody answers that question of, yeah, I want to continually improve because everybody knows they're going to be left behind if they don't. Not to scare anyone, just to, like I said, to let people know that there is a path. And thank you all for joining us again this week. Next week, I forgot. Things have been coming so fast and furious. We've got one lined up for next week, and now I know who it is. I remembered Carrie Lohman, who is the asset management program manager for the Army Corps of Engineers, will be joining us, and he's excited to be sharing things about how they have used 16 years of their accumulated data to do new sets of analysis by a third party that shows the actual measured improvements from their asset management system. So that's really exciting. And thank you all for attending, and thank you all panelists.
Thanks.
See you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Hey,
Bye.
Thank you,
thank you,
Victor.
Mike. Thank you for coordinating this.
Thanks, Alexander and Kimon. Oh, wait,
Hey,
before we go, we've seen the sun rising tomorrow in
Yeah, there it is right there.
in Japan. So Kimon is so far ahead of us. He's in tomorrow already.
that's
That is
great.
kind of cool to have seen.
Yeah, it's Tokyo in the
Uh,
background.
Yeah. So,
nice.
and
Okay,
Victor,
well,
I love your ceiling.
Oh, thank you.
Can you tell us what that is?
it's like a map.
It's a map.
Yeah,
Is it a
Yeah.
world map?
It's my
An
wife's
old one.
doing. It's a map, world map.
that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, one last thing, Mike. I posted an article about all this today on LinkedIn on my LinkedIn. So if
Oh,
anybody wants
cool.
to see, yeah. So there's kind of and that's the beginning. There's going to be another part, a second part. I'm still
Cool.
getting information on what's happening. So
All right.
yeah.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.